Welcome to step number 2, which is forecasting revenue. If you haven't already watched the lecture associated with modeling best practices, please do so in the Udemy course. Otherwise, just click right here and that will take you to the same video. Okay, let me go back. Now, in terms of forecasting revenue, it's important to do this because revenue actually comes at the very top of the income statement. Okay, and we're not going to talk about the income statement right now. We'll talk about that in the next section. Okay, but for this current section, let me talk about revenue. So remember earlier in the course, we talked about macroeconomics and we spoke about GDP. And we know that GDP is the revenue that a country makes. Well, revenue is the amount of money for a company, or the GDP for a company, meaning how much money they make before expenses. And so this tab here, which again is step 2, I've included 2 revenue line items for you. Okay, and I don't know what type of company you're going to be forecasting in the future after you're done with this course, so I included 2 revenue line items for you. Okay, and you can rename these as well. So, for example, if you were the Tootsie Roll company, which is the easiest company on the planet to model because there's only 1 or 2 products, you would type here Tootsie Roll, I don't know, bars. And then here would be Tootsie Roll lollipops. Okay, that's good enough. And then what you do is you would just type in what you think the Tootsie Roll company is going to make for revenue every single quarter. Okay? And you only enter in the blue numbers here. Okay, everything else is calculated for you. And if you wanted to, what you could do is you could change these quarters here. So this here is calendar year 2013. There's 4 quarters in that year. If you change this, the cool thing about this model and this spreadsheet is that every other instance gets changed going forward based on what you change here. And I'll give you an example. Let's say instead of doing the first 4 quarters here in 2013, let's say we wanted it to be in 2009. So I can go 2009, and then I can just change all of these really quickly. You'll see what I mean in a second. This is cool. Okay, 2009. Oops. And of course, you'd have to change this here to 2010, 2011, etc. Okay. Now watch this. If I now go to the income statement by clicking this tab or the button up here, you'll see that all of these items here are also 2009. And of course, we changed the others, but they all refer back to that revenue forecast tab, which is step 2. Okay. So this tab is going to drive a lot of other stuff in the course. And the same thing with the balance sheet. Let's go to the balance sheet. See how this ties directly? Okay. And then the cash flow statement as well. That sort of thing. I think you get the idea. Okay. So for the Tootsie Roll company, for example, let's assume that they made $10 here, right? Then $20 in the next quarter, then 30, then 40, okay? And then sales went down a little bit here, say to 35, and then started resuming higher. And I'll get to that in a second, okay? And the reason I wanted to show you this is because of this spark line that's created. You see that? It's called a spark line. It's really cool. And that shows you seasonality, okay? And so usually what happens for companies is their biggest quarter is the 4th quarter, meaning the year-end quarter, because what happens is a lot of salespeople that work at big companies, they have a quota they have to get for each year, right? And so the 4th quarter is usually the biggest. The 1st quarter is always slower, right? Think about it. If you're a consumer and you buy holiday gifts for in December, you're not going to spend as much money in the 1st quarter of the next year, right? You're probably going to return some stuff to the store. 2nd quarter, you'll spend a little bit more. Sometimes the 3rd quarter in the summer is even slower than the 2nd quarter because a lot of people like to go on vacation, etc. So I just want to show you seasonality, and you see how I had it dropping here, okay? So for the Tootsie Roll company, they got 10, 20, 30, 40 in these 4 quarters, right? And then what happens is revenue goes down a bit in this quarter. And I mentioned that because I want to show you here how I've got the quarter over quarter growth. Okay, so that was up 100%, that was up 50%, up 33%. And then here, it was down quarter over quarter, but still up year over year. Okay, and I just wanted to show you seasonality. Okay, and if we were to continue this trend going forward, let's say this is 40, and then say here we go to 50, and then 60, right? Then we go back down here, say to 45, then you'll see that here you got seasonally slower as well, okay? And the reason we're doing all these models, and it's a lot of fun, is because what we're trying to do is we're trying to look for patterns, right? And that's what modeling is. It's pattern recognition, right? And if you watch the modeling best practices video, you saw that I noted that the two most important rules are focus on revenue, because everything else becomes a percent of revenue, right? Almost every other item, right? And we'll focus on that later. These statements are driven off of this one and others as well. Okay, this will make more sense soon. And we just look for patterns. You look for patterns in the data, which is why I created these cool little spark lines. Okay. Now, if we scroll over here to the end, you'll see I have annual spark lines. Okay. Now, watch this. I'm going to make them smaller by clicking on this button here. Okay. And you have to do that. You're going to have to collapse this to look at the annual trend spark lines. Okay, and I've got two categories here. The top category chart here is revenue. Okay, like bars. I like to use bars for revenue. And then below that, I've got the year over year change, and we always love to look at the percent change, right? Okay, and this will make a lot of sense when we do the income statement prognostication or income statement forecast in the next section. Okay, it's a lot of fun. Okay, so let's go back here and open this up. Good. Great. Okay. And so let's say that the Tootsie Roll company, they also sold lollipops. And let's say that when they're forecasting the future, let's say that the CFO or the financial analyst working with the CFO at the Tootsie Roll Corporation kind of figured out that lollipops sell roughly half as many units or dollar value amounts as Tootsie Rolls. The bars. So what they can do is they can go like this and go equals that times 0.5. Okay. And then I copy that, and then I highlight wherever I want to paste it. And then you just go to paste formulas only. Okay. Only do formulas. Okay. You see that? There you go. Great. Okay. And here you'll see that we sold $50 worth of Tootsie Rolls in calendar 2009, okay? And you'll see up here I wrote down value in thousands of dollars, right? And you can change that if you want based on, you know, what value or what currency you're forecasting in, or if you wanted to have just as actual numbers, you can get rid of that entirely, right? So if I got rid of this, right, then that's $5. If I Control Z to undo that, and that's $5,000. Okay. All right. Now, you see here how I don't have the total? I should. That's missing. Okay. So watch this. I can copy this and I can paste it, and I don't have to paste special here because I still want the same format to come up. Okay. There you go. Isn't that cool? All right, great. And then the way I've set this up is I want you to do the quarterly numbers for quite a while. And again, you can change these up here if you want. But I want you to just do annual, you know, way into the future, because sometimes it could be tough to model quarterly revenue numbers into perpetuity. So let me just create the rest of this model. And you can either hard code these in here or make them formulas, right? It all depends on what type of company you're modeling and your style too. We're all different when it comes to modeling, right? So let me delete that. And again, we don't want to touch anything here except for the blue boxes here. So watch this. Let's just say that, I don't know, let's look here. We got year over year, 28%, 250%, revenue slowing. Let's just say for fun, I made it 25% year over year for the rest of the model, okay? Times 1.25, okay? I'm going to copy that. And then I'm going to paste that here by right-clicking. Go paste special. Remember, there's many ways to do things. Just the formulas, okay? And then what I'll do is I'll do the same thing here, actually. I'll go here, and revenue is growing 25% here. I'll slow it down, times 1.2%, okay? And then if I copy that all the way across, it's a disaster. You can't do it that way, right? So I copy, and then I'm gonna paste these here directly. So I right-click again, go paste special, just the formulas. Okay, cool. And that's year over year. See 20%? And you'll notice here I have if error. You can ignore all the if error instances, which are everywhere. But basically says if the value is empty and you get an error message because you haven't put in your data yet, then just put N. I want to put in NA, right? Instead of an error message. Okay, so we increased it 20% there. Let's now go to 15%, right? Remember, revenue slowing times 1.15. Okay, copy, and then we paste it there. Okay, all right, and then I can go here, and then you'll see that right here, all of a sudden, Chris, what are you doing? What happened to my blue numbers here? Well, I want to teach you modeling a different way too. I want you to model based on forecasting percent. So watch this. If I slow it down to say 13% here, see how it gets driven up there? Isn't that cool? 13. And when you look at it on an annual basis, that's why I was getting you ready for annual changes here. It's easier to do it that way. Okay, so let's say that we're now 12% growth year over year in that year, and then 11, 10, 5. Okay, for example. Okay, and we can do the 50% here. Let's just copy that all the way across. Copy, paste, paste, paste. And then here, see it's 50%. Is that right? A year-over-year change. Let me think about that. That's 15%. I'll make it the same as above. You see 13 up there? 13, 13, 13, 13. And then here we're going to go 12, 11, 10, 5. Okay, good. So we've completed this revenue forecast here for the Tootsie Roll Company. Again, I could go through and make this the correct year. This should be 2010, 11, 12, 13. You get the idea, okay? Now, watch this. You'll see that the seasonality every year is the same, right? The Q4 is the biggest. Q4 is the biggest, okay? Q4 is the biggest. That's a spark line. Really cool. And we love to look at patterns in the data and chart stuff because if we understand patterns, we can predict the future, okay? And a lot of companies have the biggest Q4, have Q4 as their biggest quarter and Q1 as their smallest. Watch this now. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this smaller, okay? So I set it up so when you make it smaller, you don't see the quarterly spark lines here, okay? What happens now is we're going to look at the annual spark lines, okay? This should be interesting, right? We're looking for patterns. So we can see by this company, okay, look at that. Looks like revenue increased. Okay, decrease. What happened there? Why is there no spark there? Is that an error? Let's double check. Aha. There's a mistake here. See? So I got to make that back there. Good. All right. See, we're looking at patterns, and that's how we uncover mistakes. Okay. And I'll be honest with you, I did not plan that. Okay. So you'll see here, if we look at total revenue is increasing every year. Okay, that's just dollar amount. And here is the year over year percent change. So you can see that revenue growth, see how it's slowing? Watch this. It was 85% here. And then it slowed every single year. And that happens to a lot of companies that go public, right? Companies that are private, a lot of times revenue growth is accelerating. And then when they go public, revenue growth is decelerating. So I promise you, almost every single company on the planet that's publicly traded, almost everyone, has revenue growth that's decelerating, but still positive, okay? And we look at that trend, see? And then we see here that, wow, look at that spike, right? This is just for the Tootsie Roll bars, okay? And you can see that revenue growth is great, and then revenue growth is decelerating here, okay? And the same thing here, you got revenue growth decelerating for Lollipops. And Lollipops is a much smaller percent of revenue. See, it's only 33% of total revenue. And I guess I made that amount every single year because Tootsie Roll's core competency is actually making bars and not lollipops. Okay. Now let me just increase this here. And I think you're good to go. I think that makes sense. And remember that revenue is the top of the income statement, does not account for any expenses. So it's just like GDP, right? And so after you finish this section of the course and do the corresponding case study for case study number 1 for Tony Shark's company forecasting revenue, then the next step in the next section is going to be step number 3, which is where we're actually going to go ahead and forecast the income statement. Okay, and so watch this. When I click here, you'll see all the revenue is already brought across, right? Isn't that neat? And you can always double click to find out how, or go up here to the formula tab, okay, to find out what the formula is there. And again, it's green, which means it comes from another tab, right? And so you've got all the numbers over here. And again, when you're going to look at a Sparkline a chart, I always want you to please make sure that all of these are closed, right, on an annual basis. So I'll close those. And then we go over here and we can see the revenue Sparkline, right? So revenue we can see is getting bigger, right? But revenue growth is actually slowing, but still positive, okay? Remember, we're always looking at the rate of change, right? And we'll cover the rest of this statement in the next section. And we are done with discussing the revenue forecast. So the next step for you, please, is to watch the next lecture, which will be a case study on you creating Tony Shark's virtual reality company revenue forecast, okay? And again, we're doing everything top down this course. Eventually, we'll get down to earnings, in a couple of steps from now. Okay, so I hope you enjoy case study number 1, which is the next lecture. And as always, if you have questions, please let me know. Thank you.